Good morning, and we will go ahead and call to order our MAPS 4 Citizens Advisory Board meeting for November 7th, 2024. Let me get here. Okay. Items for individual consideration. First item, 2A, is approval of the minutes from our October 3rd Citizens Advisory Board meeting. They were included in your packet. If there are any changes, corrections, or additions. If there's none, we'll take a motion in a second to approve. Anybody? Oh. Okay, great. Please cast your votes. No, I'm a yay. I'm sorry. Yes. No, I'm still signing in, so I'm a yay. Okay, motion passes. Moving on to item 2B, receive the MAPS 4 monthly financial report ending September 30, 2024. Mr. Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the revenue side for this financial report for the month, $12,319,099, fiscal year of $36,463,751, and a total of $595,569,874. On the expenditures side for the month, $4,253,048. For the fiscal year of $19,752,107, and a total of $234,815,324. And I'll try to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, any questions? Nice to see we're still percentages above.
Correct, I forgot to mention that. Still at 3% above projections.
Love that. Okay, any questions? If there's none, motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Motion they stand received. Okay. Moving on to item 2C, approve the MAPS 4 Citizens Advisory Board 2025 meeting schedule.
So every year we have to post this, and you're used to seeing this. I want to point out that we've moved 2 meetings, January and July, because of holidays conflict, but then there was an additional conflict with scheduling this room. So you can see that Friday, January 10th and Thursday, July 10th.
Okay.
So put those on your calendar.
All right. Any questions? Okay. Take a motion in a second to approve. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2D, recommend approval of addendas number 1 and 2 to the MAPS 4 Bike Lanes Phase 1B, North Classen Boulevard between Northwest Grand Boulevard and North Britton, and Northeast 16th Street between Walnut and Bryant. Awarding contract, base bid, and accepting unit price to RCC Traffic for $3,399,817.50, and approving contract and bonds.
So this is the first of our bike lane projects. I'm happy to be bringing this to you. It came in under budget. It comes with the approval from the subcommittee.
Any questions or comments? Okay, not, take a motion in a second to approve. Cast your votes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2E, recommend approval of change order number 2 to MAPS 4 Sidewalk and Related Amenities, Phase 1A, for an increase of $22,850.
These items are what we would consider routine construction items. There were some sprinkler lines that needed to be relocated, and then the sprinkler heads that needed to be relocated that were found in the right of way and in the way of the sidewalk. And then there were 2 trees that were removed, and they were. We consulted with the property owners, and it's with their consent. One of the trees was essentially dead and needed to be removed anyway. I can tell you that these items have already been done because we needed to keep the contractor moving on this, and they're pretty minimal. So I authorized them to go ahead and proceed, just so everybody's clear with that. But it does come with the approval from the subcommittee.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Good, lucky you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to item 2F, presentation on the design update for the MAPS 4 sidewalks and related amenities, Phase 2B.
So we like to periodically keep you informed about what's going on with design. Brett Cavness is here from Garver Engineers to go over what he's working on with Phase 2B of sidewalks.
Welcome.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. We're here to give you a quick update. We were here last month to talk about the preliminary engineering report for Project 2A. This month, we are nearing completion of the preliminary engineering report for Project 2B. And just to give you a quick overview before I turn it over to John Strayhorn, this project is part of the Bike Walk OKC master plan. It is more specific to 5 locations, more residential area in northeast Oklahoma City, and you see those on your screen there. The Adventure District, Edwards Park area, 23rd Street north and south of 23rd Street, and then the Culberson East Highland area. Project goals, obviously, with these sidewalks are connectivity of residential areas as we move out from residential to the more arterial streets and connection points. And we also want to upgrade and improve pedestrian safety. The budget for this project's a little bit more than Project 2A. As you see there, it's $3.9 million. And with that, I'm going to let John Strayhorn, who is our project engineer, talk about the project.
Good morning. I'm going to walk you through each of these areas, kind of highlight what we evaluated, and then some of the major connections. So starting here with the Adventure District area, we're looking at evaluating sidewalks along 50th Street from Prospect to MLK, as well as tying into the north side of Lincoln Park. Some of the major connections with this area is the Oklahoma City Zoo and Science Museum, as well as Lincoln Park. Next, we'll look at the Edwards Park area. We looked at evaluating northeast Grand Boulevard from 16th to 10th Street, there adjacent to Edwards Park, as well as a short segment on the north side of 10th Street. Some of the major connections here are Edwards Park, as I mentioned, Katy Trail, and then a Senior Assistant Living Center. Next, we'll look at north of 23rd Street. Several streets included here, to name a few: Northeast 30th Street, Northeast 23rd Street, Kelly, Lottie, and several others were evaluated. Some of the major connections here: a couple of schools with Classen High School, as well as Thelma Parks Elementary, as well as Phillips Park. And then there's several Embark bus stops located in this area between Kelly Avenue, Martin Luther King, and 23rd as well. Now we'll look at the Culbertson East Highland area. The few streets here were Lottie Avenue, 12th Street, and Kate Avenue. Major connection here is OU Health, as well as Senior Living. And then the last area is south of 23rd Street. Several streets here again, similar to north of 23rd Street. A few of those, Lindsay, Kelly, Lottie, and a few others. Major connections here, again, OU Health, state government buildings, as well as Riley Leroy Pitts Park. So now to talk about some of the typical design challenges we've seen throughout the Phase 2B areas. One of those is utility conflicts. As you can see in both of these pictures, it gives you a pretty good idea of the utility conflicts. And a common theme here is power pole alignments throughout these Phase 2B areas, which create their own set of design challenges, as well as existing right-of-way. A good instance of this is in the left picture here, where the house is encroaching right up to the edge of the property line, which only leaves us a few feet to install sidewalk. which obviously creates a challenge. And then the last one, just general ADA compliance challenges. The right picture gives a pretty good instance of this, where we've got some steep grades that we'll want to make sure we account for while maintaining ADA compliancy. So now let's talk through some of these project recommendations. Starting with the Adventure District area, we're looking at improvements along the south side of 50th Street, as well as tying in on the north end of Lincoln Park. Typical section, and on this stretch, we're looking at a 5-foot wide sidewalk with a 2-foot buffer. Reason for this, a couple reasons to tie in and match some of those existing sidewalk segments that are already out there. Edwards Park area, looking at improvements along the east side of Grand Boulevard, with a couple of tie-ins to the existing sidewalk network within Edwards Park, as well as a little segment there on the north side of 10th Street that would go underneath I-35. Typical section here is looking at a 6-foot wide sidewalk at the back of curb. Couple of reasons to fit the gap between the back of curb and the bridge columns under I-35, as well as minimize clearing in the wooded area south of Edwards Park. Looking at north of 23rd Street, improvements along several streets here, south side of 30th, east side of Prospect, as well as east side of Jordan. Typical section, again, 5-foot wide sidewalk at the back of curb to match existing widths, but also at the back of curb to accommodate right-of-way constraints as well as any businesses in the area. The Culbertson East Highland area, connections along east and west sides of Cade Avenue, as well as 12th Avenue on the north side. Typical section here, 5-foot with a buffer, similar reasons to kind of tie in existing and match some of those segments that are out there. You can see we're kind of back and forth on each side of Cade. The areas in red are areas where there's not sidewalk now, and the areas that don't have red along those few blocks of Cade do. So this is going to allow a continuous connection along Cade. And then lastly, south of 23rd Street, improvements along several streets again, with that being Lottie, 16th, Lindsay, and Prospect. Typical section here, again, 5-foot with the buffer for same reasons to match those existing segments out in the field. So now let's talk a little about the estimated construction cost. So we provided a cost for each of these 5 areas with a summation total there. So you can see the estimated construction total is approximately $3.92 million, which does fall below the Phase 2B budget of approximately $3.94 million, which leaves us a budget balance of about $22,900. So the recommendations we're presenting today do fall within and under the Phase 2B budget. And with that, I'll let Brett close this presentation out.
Thank you, John. Again, we're still submitting the preliminary engineering report. This is kind of an update where we're at today. We envision that we will have a few comments from staff that we'll need to incorporate into the final preliminary engineering report before it comes back to this board for approval. So with the schedule, you see we're here in November of '24. So we're wrapping up that preliminary engineering report. We envision having that in the next couple of weeks to staff for their review. Then we will start on the presentation in December back here for approval. And then the work really begins in earnest the first part of next year. Now, what you do see here that kind of jumps out at everyone is the red, and that's for right-of-way acquisition and utility relocations. Two parts to that is utility relocations do take time to coordinate and get moved. And as John showed you some of the challenges that we have, particularly with overhead electric. But the second part of that is if we have to acquire any right-of-way, and particularly since we are in neighborhoods, we have several locations through there, we wanted to make sure to give ourselves ample time to go through that process. Again, the challenge and our task is to minimize any right-of-way acquisitions for this project. But we wanted to be a little conservative and give a lot of time in there. You then go through and see the rest of the process of the 95% through final plans, PSE, PS&E submittal, and then final presentation in July, what it looks like right now in 2025. Then bidding process in the latter part of the summer, early fall, and construction starting in the last quarter of 25 and extending into 26. Again, you see the long green lead items there for construction. Again, we're going through neighborhoods. We'll be crossing people's driveways, so we need to make sure to give us ample time to coordinate how we sequence construction through that during all of those crossings with those residents. And with that, we're ready to take some questions.
Okay. Questions, comments? Yes.
Hello, thank you for your presentation and the information. I always learn a lot whenever you present on sidewalks, and I love sidewalks, so thank you for your work. Regarding the right-of-way and the utilities and all of this process, it sounds like you're planning for that very well. Is there a best practice that you're aiming for? Like, will we be attempting to bury all the lines? Like, what is the overall goal, the best idea in your opinion?
The overall goal is first to minimize encroachments and relocations. That's the first goal. Second is, can we do something in design to minimize utility relocations such as power poles? Can we utilize a small retaining wall to work around those power poles, things of that nature? Then lastly is coordinate early and often with the utility relocations. Now, we don't own the utilities, so we can't dictate to them to put it underground, power poles, and that's one of the big things that we see a lot with sidewalk projects. Most of the time, it's just going to be moving the poles.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, Wendy.
When you talk about the right-of-way, so is this property going to be just public domain for the residents, or how does that work?
Okay. The plats typically have public right-of-way where between the streets are located. Our goal is to stay inside the public right-of-way and not acquire anything. Now, the maintenance, I'll maybe have to defer to Mr. Todd on the maintenance of the sidewalk once it has been constructed. If there are areas that we can physically not build the sidewalk within the public domain, that's when we would acquire right-of-way and it would become public right-of-way. But again, Mr. Todd may be able to answer the question on the maintenance side of that.
So typically, the maintenance is property owner's responsibility, just like mowing the grass between the curb and their property line.
Other questions? Any follow-up? Okay. Any other questions, comments? No? Okay.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
all.
much for your presentation today. Okay, moving on to item 2G. Recommend approval of final plans and specifications to be advertised for bid for the MAPS 4 Animal Shelter.
Really excited about bringing you these
Yes.
plans today. Todd Edmonds is here from HSE Architects to go through what you can expect in the plans.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Todd. Yes, we're very excited and pleased to be here this morning to present to you the final plans and specifications for the MAPS 4 Animal Shelter. You've seen this presentation several months ago. Obviously, it's been updated, but I do want to go over everything with you to give you a new overview. So you might remember and recall that we are building this new animal shelter on the same site as the existing facility. So the large area there shown in gray is the existing animal shelter that must remain in place while we're building the new animal shelter. In addition to that existing facility, there is also a pet cemetery right here where my cursor is in the center of the site that must remain and not be disturbed, as well as a Humane Society building just to the south of that. And then there's an Oklahoma City Police Department building to the far north on the site here, just north of our site and property line. So lots of obstacles there, along with utilities that serve all of those facilities that must remain in place during construction. So through an extensive site study, we determined that the best location for the new facility is right here at the north edge of the property that is between the existing animal shelter and the police department building is just off the top of the slide there for reference. So in this site plan, you can see that the pet cemetery here is still in place. The Humane Society is just below that. In this site plan, we're showing the existing animal shelter to be removed, but we are planning to keep all of this existing parking for overflow when the animal shelter has large adoption events requiring additional parking. So this project will be built in 2 phases, given the constraints of the site. So we will build the main building here first in phase 1. Once the animal shelter moves over into the new building, we will then build phase 2, which includes the barn, a new barn here, plus the additional parking and pasture. So also, in an effort to fit the building on the site, we located about 9,500 square feet of office space to a second floor, and I'll show you that plan here shortly. But our design for this building, in addition to all those obstacles that were on the site, we also had a challenge of a 19-foot change in grade from the west side of the property across to the east side of the property over to Bryant. So as one of the things that we did to help maneuver those grades is these kennel wings that you see here, these buildings, these linear elements, we call them wings, and they're connected with a central corridor or spine. And by separating those kennels out into wings, it allowed us to do several things. One is each of those wings steps up the site 12 inches as you go up the site from east to west. So that really helped us maneuver some of that extreme change in grade. It also provided an opportunity to have outdoor play yards for the animals that are in these kennels. So in between each of these wings, we have outdoor play yards that are covered with artificial turf. And then that also allowed us to line each of those linear wings with windows down each side, allowing lots of natural daylight into those kennels, which is very beneficial to the health of the animals. So here's a look at the first floor plan of the main building. So the overall square footage, including a 2,800 square foot barn, is just a little over 72,000 square feet. The front of the building, which is on the far right here, faces Bryant, so that is the main entrances for all of the functions in the building. And as opposed to the current facility, which only has one entrance, so whether you've got dropping off an animal, bringing an animal, or taking an animal out, or you have a sick animal or a healthy animal, they all currently go through one entrance. So in this new facility, we have 4 separate entrances. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, this is the clinic entrance with a separate entrance, separate lobby for clinic, treatment, and surgery. Just below that is the intake lobby. This is where you would bring a stray or surrender animal. There's separate kennels there for dog holding and cat holding. Below that, here in the kind of light turquoise area, is the large adoption lobby. This is where you would come to adopt a dog, or if they have large adoption events, this lobby can accommodate those folks. And then there's also, in this blue area behind that lobby, is a linear north-south corridor that has additional adoption kennels. And then at the very bottom right-hand corner of the plan where it says training, this is an area that can be locked off from the rest of the facility and can be used for public meetings after hours. It has its own restrooms and catering area. And then basically everything to the left of this is all cat and dog habitats with dog kennels. These are the linear wings that I mentioned where the dog kennels and cat habitats will be located. On the very far left is a large storage room for food and supplies. And then below that is labeled intake here is what we call the Sally Port. And that is where the animal control officers go out, get stray animals, and bring them in their vehicles. There's several overhead garage doors there where they can go in, shut the door, and drop the animals off. So the number of kennels, one of the main issues with the existing facility is the number of kennels and habitats available for the stray animals. We have more than doubled the number of new dog kennels, and from 246 up to 546, and then also increased the cat kennels from 210 to 317. And then each individual habitat itself is larger than what they currently have. So here's a look at the second floor. Everything shown in gray is just looking at the rooftops of the first floor. So the colored area here is the second floor administration area that I mentioned, with offices, a large break room here in the middle that serves the entire building, animal control offices here in the blue, and then the white square is just an open area. That's the area that's over the adoption lobby, so you can look down through a glass wall down into that adoption lobby. This is a plan of the barn. There are 6 large animal stalls with a drive-through through the middle for dropping off of the animals, a poultry area, and storage. And then here's an image looking at the front of the building as you would enter in off of Bryant Avenue. You can see the 4 separate entrances that I mentioned earlier on the floor plan, the clinic over here on the right, then intake, straight ahead is the adoption lobby, and then training on the left. And there's just a night shot of that similar view. You can see we'll have some uplighting underneath the canopies, some lighted signage, and this is the monument sign at the main front entry. Here's just a close-up of the adoption lobby. You can see the materials here. We will use durable, low-maintenance materials such as cementitious siding, also a wood fiber siding underneath the soffits and on the front, and then also wood trusses. Here's a look at the adoption lobby on the interior. So as you come in the front lobby of the adoption, this is what you would see. This is the 2-story space that I mentioned. So you can see up here on the second level the glass from the administration area that looks down into that lobby. We're planning to put some acrylic vinyl on there of frosted acrylic that would show some animals running across the glass, just to add a little fun element there. You can see the cat adoption areas down here on the first floor, and then opposite that are the dog kennels over here on the left-hand side. And then this is the front reception desk. Everything here that looks like wood is a wood grain tile that will be very durable. We don't have any carpet in the entire facility. Everything will either be polished concrete or epoxy. And then we brought in a few natural elements, such as these concrete planters with plants in them. And then we're intending to install a biophilia element here on this main wall above the reception that not only brings in nature, but it also has some acoustical properties. This is a typical intake lobby. The clinic lobby is very similar. Again, durable finishes, polished concrete, wood grain tile on the front of the reception. We'll have acoustical ceiling elements up on the ceiling. This is an acoustic treatment called Tectum, and then we also have the wood trusses that you saw on the outside. We're also bringing those to the inside into the lobby. Typical treatment area. I'll move along here. So this is one of the kennel wings. You can see the windows that will line down both sides. We'll have some accent color on one end of it, acoustical ceilings. We also have the main ductwork that provides air into the space. We'll run down the center, and this will be a fabric ductwork that can actually be taken down periodically, thrown in the washing machine to remove all the dust and dander and bacteria and put back up. Typical cat condo. And then the budget. Our design team worked very hard with the MAPS office and got this project. The actual budget for the project is just under $32 million, and we're currently below budget by almost $200,000. So we feel really good about that. And then schedule-wise, we just finished up the plans and specifications, and we're currently in the review, presentation, and approval phase. We're allowing 60 days for this project to bid, and then we expect to award the construction contract to the successful bidder on January of 2025. And then we're allowing 24 months, which includes the 2 phases that I mentioned earlier, for construction, which would be a January 2027 opening. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Joy.
First of all, I just want to say it's a beautiful, beautiful project. I can't wait to see it being done, and I think it will improve the lives of both the animals and the workers there, which I think is great. I just have one small question for you, and that is, how do you plan to connect the existing parking lot, which will be overflow parking, to the new parking? Are people going to walk through the grass? Is there going to be a sidewalk, or how is that going? I didn't see any connecting
I
there.
apologize, it's not shown in that slide. That was kind of a presentation slide, but our construction drawings do include a pathway, a paved pathway from those parking lot to the building.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Oh, yes, Chelsea.
Hi, agreed, beautiful. So excited to see this happen. Our community really needs this, so thank you for this effort. I can definitely tell there's a big intention towards also keeping the space very clean, like hypoallergenic in as much ways as possible, so thank you for that commitment. This is probably above and beyond thinking, like, if this could ever happen, but I've seen in some cities they have done some different types of kennels where they're not facing directly to each other, especially for the dog units, so that there's a little bit more room for the animals to be less stressed because they're not staring at each other. Is there any opportunity to kind of alter some of the interior walls so that some accommodations like that can be made for the health of the animals?
We have addressed that in all kennel spaces. So most of the spaces do not face each other, like in the main adoption lobby. That's why we added those concrete planters in there so that the pets on the one side of the lobby do not see, and they don't, not as distracted with the traffic coming in and out. The main kennels themselves, they either face an outside wall, and the kennels in the center have solid panels on the lower portion so that they don't see each other. And then also where I mentioned all the play yards that are outside, our walls start at 4.5 feet. So the windows are 4.5 feet up to almost 10 feet so that the dogs aren't looking directly out and getting stressed by all the dogs and animals that are outside. So there's really no place where any of the kennels are where they would have direct view of another kennel or another animal.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Any other questions? I would just echo, y'all have done a lot of work in a short amount of time, and it shows. So thank you so very much for making this a priority project. Okay. Thank you so much, Todd. Appreciate you being here. Okay, so we need to vote on the final plans here. Oh, come on. There. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2H, recommend approval of amendment number 2 to the Maps 4 Park Enhancements, Public Spaces, Transformation River Phase 1 Pedestrian Bridge for an increase of $195,505.
We had a similar amendment, change order, it's either last month or the month before, similar to this, and it really stems from geotech on the banks, 300 feet away from there at the river. The bedrock can do some strange things, and best we can do is do an educated guess as to where this is. Sometimes it doesn't work out. So there was an adjustment that needed to be done with the drilled shafts. As big as the shafts are, it doesn't take many feet for this to add up. So I believe it was only missed by about 10 feet. But like I said, it's several shafts, and they're large diameter. So this comes from the subcommittee with their approval. I also want to point out that this has been done. Rather than hold the contractor for several weeks till we get through the whole process, because it would cost us much more than this for them to demobilize and mobilize back up, this has been done.
Okay, any questions? Chelsea.
Okay, quick question about that process that it's already moved forward. I appreciate that the work has already moved forward. My question is, was there like contingency in the budget for such a thing? Are we still within the realm of?
We're still within the budget of the entire project. This will chip away a little bit at the amphitheater money, and maybe it'll affect the money that's there for the dam, but it's still within the whole river project.
Okay, and is it fair to say that of the three things you just mentioned, the pedestrian bridge, the amphitheater, and the dam, the pedestrian bridge is the priority for the funding?
Well, it depends on who you talk to,
Fair.
but it certainly is now because it's under construction, so
Okay.
we've got to finish it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes. Moving on to item 2I, presentation on the design update for the maps for South Lake Park improvements and the CB Cameron Park improvements.
Just wanted to bring this to you, show you what was going on. We haven't talked about this soccer project in quite a while. So Lindsay Flesher and Jeff Evans are here today to take you through the project.
Good morning.
Morning. Yes, we're here to just present a brief update as we're wrapping up the preliminary report for both CB Cameron Park and South Lakes Park. We're going to start by just giving a brief history of where we started at the project and where we've kind of ended up right now through master planning and finalizing our preliminary report.
So we're going to start with CB Cameron Park. We did work on both parks, CB Cameron and South Lakes, for the master planning process. We did work with the user groups, Northern Oklahoma City Soccer Club and South Lakes Soccer Club. We worked with Parks Department, Maps Department, our Maps office. And so that's where this information comes from and where it was compiled. The project limits for CB Cameron Park, as you can see, are about 110 acres on the overall site. We're working with the 70-acre site that you can see outlined in red there. This park was opened in 1980. Predominantly, it's been used as a soccer complex over the years. It is currently used as a soccer complex. The north 5 fields were renovated over the last few years and I believe are opening up this year to be used, or at the end of last year they were opened up. Those are 5 lit fields there on the north side of the site that says existing fields. Our master plan will include 14 new soccer pitches. 10 of those are in that red area, 4 to the south that you don't really see there that are going to be constructed by the soccer club. We are going to provide the amenities and grading and everything to get to that, and then they will provide those 4 fields to the south. 2 of those fields will be synthetic turf as part of this project. We will have a championship clubhouse, concession restroom buildings throughout the site, maintenance area, bleachers, spectator viewing areas, the infrastructure that goes with this, parking, circulation, ADA accessibility throughout the site, shaded seating areas, and then there will be future expansion for the site. Some of these images, the main plaza area seen in plan view, conceptual. We will start working through CDs once this gets approved and we move forward, but this is conceptual design with the help of CEC on the grading and drainage and GH2 architecture on the architecture there. Kind of an aerial view across the site of the center plaza area, the 2 turf fields that you're seeing there, parking, ADA accessibility, shaded viewing, some of the entry signage that we're working towards there, some of the plaza seating areas that's shaded. You can see to the fields or you can hang out between games, great staging areas. Same thing with the center core area, the concession hospitality building that Lindsay will talk about here in a minute. Again, just another view, providing some play opportunity and areas for people to relax there between the fields in the central plaza area. And then that's kind of an overview of where that central building is that Lindsay's going to talk about.
Yes. Okay. So the main championship clubhouse that'll be placed where Jeff just showed, it'll be approximately 7,000 square feet, have a large hospitality area, office space, restrooms, concessions, a medical room. Through working with the user group North Oklahoma City Soccer Club, we have prepared a plan, a program for this building, and from that program is how this preliminary building layout came to be. There will also be 2 satellite concession restroom buildings placed on the site at convenient locations to accommodate the needs of the site, as well as a new maintenance facility. These are just some additional conceptual renderings of what it could potentially look like through design is when we'll be finalizing actual materials for the various buildings that'll be constructed on the site. And now Jeff is going to continue as we move to South Lakes Park and just give another brief history of where we started with that through master planning and where we're at now.
So this one, Southwest Oklahoma City, this is a 160-acre park overall. You can see in the red outline there, we're working with about 75 acres of it, which this is the soccer complex. The rest of the site contains a skate park, playground, community center, pond, fishing docks, an extensive trail system. PDG has been fortunate to work on this since its inception. In the early 2000s, we did the original master plan for this park and almost every phase to date in the park. This one will have modifications to the site because a lot of it is existing compared to CB Cameron Park. So we will update excuse me, the concession restroom and hospitality area in the center of the complex, upgrades to irrigation on the site that's going to be done in coordination with the South Lake Soccer Club. We will improve ADA accessibility and sidewalks throughout the site. We will have a centrally located clubhouse, and we will do an addition and upgrade to the maintenance facility for this complex. We'll also have satellite restrooms that will go throughout the site to increase those amenities on site. This is an overview of the central core area. The lower building here is your concession restroom, hospitality area, and some offices with the maintenance facility. And back the roofed area is the existing maintenance facility, and the area north of that, or to the east of that, would be the add-on to that facility. Some renderings of what that might look like with seating areas and areas to hang out between games. Drop-off area that's existing looking in towards that building. And then this is kind of an overview of the master plan where that is. These are the two championship fields on that site. This is a fully lit complex, so that was done on other phases, so these fields will have that too. But this is the central core area that Lindsay's going to talk about the buildings.
Yes. Okay, for the clubhouse on this site, it is planned to be approximately 1,200 square feet, located between the championship fields as discussed. Again, it'll have a large hospitality area, office space, concessions, restrooms, a management area, and medical room. Again, through various meetings with South Lake Soccer Club, a program for this site was developed as well, which was carried through into this preliminary floor plan. This, as well as the CB Cameron site, as we move into CDs, this will be tweaked and we'll continue to meet with the user groups and ensure that everyone's needs are met. Also, as discussed on this site, there will be satellite concession restroom buildings strategically placed for convenience and the addition to the existing maintenance facility. Again, here are a few more conceptual renderings of what we anticipate buildings potentially looking like, but again, that'll be finalized during construction documents. Here is the budget breakdown for the project that was approved by City Council. We've continually worked with our design team, the user groups, and our cost estimator through the project to ensure that we could get maximum amenities and improvements at all the sites within this budget. And here's our estimate that we're at right now as we're wrapping up the preliminary report, which is within that budget. That's it.
Any questions? I'm glad to see this moving forward. Look forward to seeing more of you in the future. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 2J, recommend approval of change order number 14 for the MAPS 4 Fairgrounds Coliseum for an increase of $103,937.
So this is a change order, as you said, for the Coliseum. Everything's going great out there, but in typical fashion with construction like this, things come up. There is an uninterruptible power supply that needs to be added. for some IT equipment, and then some pads for some transformers, and then water hydrants and some drains that were inadvertently left out in some planter areas. So this has been negotiated. We feel comfortable with where it is, and it comes with the approval from the subcommittee.
Okay, any questions? Not, I'd take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes, thank you. Moving on to 2K, recommend approval of amendment number 2 to contract for architectural services with Populous, Inc. for the MAPS 4 Coliseum for an increase of $648,250.
One of the things that the architect does for us once we get into construction is what we call contract administration. They have somebody there almost all the time, observing the construction, answering questions, processing claims, going to the construction meetings and those things. Remember that when we started this project, when we negotiated the architect's contract, we anticipated the construction period to be right around 24 months. So that's what was negotiated in his contract. When we started with the actual bidding, it became apparent, almost 2 years ago, that it was going to take almost 2 years just to get some of the equipment, chillers and switchgear, the electrical switchgear, to be specific on that. So in order to make sure all that was done properly, we extended the construction period to 3 years, which is working out great. They're getting the materials, they are on schedule, everything is fine. What we didn't account for at that time when we negotiated the architect's contract is that additional year of construction administration. So again, this has been negotiated by MAP staff, and we feel comfortable with the number that is there for an additional year of architect's time.
Okay, any questions? No? Okay, not, I'd take a motion in a second to approve. Motion passes, thank you. Moving on to item 2L, recommend approval of change order number 2, MAPS 4 downtown arena building upgrades for an increase of $8,000,000. I'm sorry, 8,000, I was like, what? $8,978.05.
So this is the construction for the offices in Paycom that we've talked about numerous times, and under construction. Again, routine construction items. There's return air grills and ductwork for $3,500, and then when they did the demo in the crew area, there were some wall supports, some angle iron that came down from the ceiling that wasn't apparent until they did that demo, and that needs to be moved in order to get the ceiling height that we need in there. So as I said, this is what we would consider routine stuff, and this comes with the approval from the venues subcommittee.
Okay, any questions? With the $8,000 increase? Okay. Not, I take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes, thank you. Based on some discussion that was had yesterday at the Civil Rights Subcommittee, we are striking item 2M. The architects and operator are going to go back and do a little more work, and then we'll bring that presentation back to you hopefully next month, but if not, after the first of the year. So that takes us to item 2N, presentation on design update for the MAPS 4 Henrietta B. Foster Center.
Again, wanted to bring you updates as we work along. Branson Young is here from JHBR to walk you through the project.
All right, good morning. So kind of a quick update. We'll go through kind of the project scope, where we're at currently as we're wrapping up the task one or preliminary design portion of it. kind of expressing sort of the design progress that we've made, and then also our anticipated project schedule as this project continues to develop. Just to kind of orient ourselves, so the Henrietta B. Foster Center, right here in the yellow square, this is Northeast 4th Street. Oops. And then North Lincoln Boulevard is over here to the west of the facility. This is kind of an enlarged plan of it. So we've got kind of this large vacant land here to the south that's being acquired by the city of Oklahoma City, and that's going to be utilized for parking to service this facility. So again, Northeast 4th Street up here at the top of the screen, and then the Henrietta B. Foster Center here in the red with the additional parking down here to the south of it. What this does is it allows us to kind of create a continuous loop around the facility there for service, access, that kind of thing. We're maintaining kind of the existing entry up here on Northeast 4th Street, but it's going to become sort of the community entry for the facility, whereas the day-to-day operations, conference center, those types of things, will utilize a new entry on the south side. That way it's easily accessible to the new parking lot. So this is the first floor plan. The facility itself is roughly 28,000 square feet. And so you'll see kind of that existing entry point up here to the north. It's connected with a corridor that kind of ties everything back together on the first floor. We've got these large work areas that are kind of flex lounge space / work type areas. That's this area kind of here in the sort of purple color. Over here to the left or the west, there's this blue area. This is a little bit more dedicated type office space where we've got individual offices and then also kind of flex cubicle type work areas and a little bit of lounge space in there as well. Here kind of towards the center of the building, we've got this area that's allocated as sort of flexible space. So whether that gets utilized as classroom space, meeting areas, work areas, potentially future kitchens, those types of things, we're allocating some area there that can be easily and quickly renovated for whatever those changing needs are. This area is where it's a single-story roof, so having roof access for mechanical systems, that kind of thing, is relatively easy. We're also immediately adjacent to basement access, so in the event that we ever had to run plumbing, those types of things, that space is available and easily accessible. This area here to the gray, we've currently got allocated as a catering kitchen in support of this conference center space that's in the blue immediately across the hall from it. So the location where the conference space is, this is actually currently the location where the swimming pool is, so it's kind of a large high bay type space. So it gets us the desired volume and sizes for those flexible conference rooms, and then putting operable partitions in between those spaces. That way we can flex sort of the size of those meeting rooms to accommodate small, medium, and large groups. Here in the kind of middle of the building, we've got public restroom facilities, janitor's closet, mechanical, electrical, and also a little bit of storage space that services that conference area. Probably the biggest change to the entire project is this area here where the existing basketball gymnasium is. We have our new entry here on the south that ties to the parking lot. You enter into a vestibule area and then into a new lobby space that takes advantage of that double height volume that the basketball gymnasium gives us. So we've got a little bit of a welcome or reception area there, kind of a raised platform that becomes the base for a monumental stair that takes you up to a new mezzanine space, and then you'll see it on the second floor here, how that all ties in. We also have dedicated classroom space here that's just beyond kind of that entryway, and then maintaining a portion of that existing basketball gymnasium, its existing court. It's got the H.B. Foster Center logo at the mid-court, so we're maintaining that and kind of preserving it. It gives us, again, kind of a flexible space that can be used for meetings, yoga classes, demonstrations, those types of things. So going to the second floor, again, down here at the south end, this is our basketball gym area to the left, and then kind of the double volume lobby space that we've created. We've got the monumental stair that takes you up to a mezzanine level with a little bit of lounge space, and then a dedicated podcast studio immediately off of that. We're creating a new connecting corridor that goes across the existing roof that gives us ADA access over to the existing second floor area, where that's going to be dedicated office space. We've got a couple of restroom areas that are being built out for use. break room, and then a few smaller meeting or conference center spaces there. Kind of moving back down to the south portion of the building, this area here, we've created a new elevator lobby, a new stairwell that services all the floors, and then a double-sided elevator that gives us access to these intermediate levels that are over here to the right-hand side. The building has a basement and then 4 additional finished floor elevations, so creating that new elevator tower and stairwell gives us an opportunity to tie all those floors together and make the building entirely ADA accessible. This is an exterior rendering, so you're looking back to the southwest, so you're standing on the northeast corner of the building. We've got some patch and repair of the existing ephes that we're doing on the ends, but when you turn around and get to the north elevation of the building, we're largely restoring it back to the original character of the building. So we're taking off the existing ephes and putting back brick that's similar in color to the original building. The existing canopy is getting renovated and modified back to its original character. A lot of the planters that are shown there, those are existing, so we're going through and just sort of patching and repairing those, restoring them, putting in new vegetation, that kind of thing. One item that you see right here, kind of in the foreground, we've got 3 retail storefronts that we're creating on the first floor. These are independent of the rest of the facility, so they can operate at separate hours from the rest of it. They have their own dedicated outside access, and they're roughly 330 square feet apiece. We've allocated some space for digital signage so they can advertise various programs, events, those types of things that are going on within the facility. Back here, you've got a courtyard space, and then a portion of that, we've got a large wall mural that we're proposing to utilize the 1% public art funds for that portion of the project. Kind of jumping to the opposite corner of the building, so this is the southwest corner. You're looking back northeast. Currently, this upper area has a lot of old casement windows with single pane glass. A lot of that's busted out, has security grates over it, that type of thing. So we're proposing to remove all of that, come back with a translucent glazing system that's called Cowwall, doing a little bit of signage over the top of that so we get the Foster Center logo over it. The lower portion of this wall right now is, oops, it's like accidentally right-click. The lower portion of that right now is currently just brick, so it's opaque. We're going to open that up, get a little bit more natural light into those lobby spaces in the gym area. Over here to the right-hand side, you see this new canopy. This kind of takes you from that parking lot area and gives you covered access to the new entry point that's right here that's recessed in. And then you've got a little bit of a signage tower that kind of directs you to that front door. This is the northwest corner of the building, so looking back to the southeast. So again, this is sort of the sort of community or public side of the building. Again, you know, exposing that brick and trying to bring back a little bit of the originality of the building. We've got kind of a monument here, kind of commemorating Mrs. Foster, her contributions and her history to the community. So you see her portrait there with a little bit of signage to the right-hand side of it. Again, kind of patching and repairing the existing ephes. There's an existing fire stair that's outside. We're basically just sort of recladding it, freshening it up, and making it a little bit of an element on that facade. So as you step in through that south door, you come in through that entry vestibule, you're greeted immediately with a reception and welcoming area. This is that raised plinth just beyond it that creates the base for a monumental stair that goes up to that mezzanine level. To the left is the existing basketball gym that we're preserving, so you've got direct access from that lobby space to it. Kind of back here around the corner is that classroom space on the first floor. Through those 2 doors, that takes you back to the northern portion of the building where all of the office spaces are and that kind of thing. To the right-hand side, you've got a recessed elevator lobby and the stairwell that takes you up to the additional floors. So this is up on the second floor, the mezzanine level, looking back towards that double-height lobby space. This is a sort of a connector on that mezzanine that gets you around to the second floor elevator lobby that gives you access to those other spaces. This is the dedicated podcast studio space here, and then a little bit of kind of like a pre-function or a flex lounge type seating space off of it. Back down to the first floor, again, another view here of that sort of raised plinth that becomes the base for the monumental stair. We've got a little bit of a learning stair built in, so if you're doing tours, impromptu meetings, those types of things, it gives you a place to kind of gather before you take off on the tour of the facility. An interior view of the basketball court gym, again, just kind of preserving that existing epoxy resin floor and the center court logo, access through these glazed double doors and a little bit of natural light there. And then the conference center space, a very, very simple, sophisticated space, built-in AV, that type of thing. And then I mentioned earlier the operable partitions that allow us to kind of subdivide that space into smaller rooms as required. Project schedule, so we're currently kind of wrapping up that task 1 or preliminary design report, and so we're going to be issuing that here towards the end of November. Our task 2 or final design is due March of 2025, with us doing bidding in May of 2025 for this project. Construction is slated for June 2025 through December of 2026. The design budget for this project is $12,254,600. We do have a kind of an early demolition package that has already been done, and Chris will speak to that here in just a minute. But its total, as it's wrapping up, is $181,030. That leaves us $12,073,570 for the rest of the development of this project. Right now, as it currently stands, we're at $11,199,438, so we're roughly $874,132 under budget. We're cautiously optimistic with that right now. We're looking at seeing what we can put back into the project to help support some of the programs and that kind of thing that are happening. But right now, it looks like we're kind of hitting our marks as to where we want to be. And of course, we'll reevaluate that as we start to develop and submit the later tasks.
Correct.
And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Questions? Anything? No? Okay. Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Look forward to March. Okay, moving on to item 2.0. Recommend approval of change order number 1 for the MAPS for Henrietta B. Foster Center selective demolition for $16,190 and accepting the project.
So this is the completion of the demo, as it says, and Chris Morgan is here, also from JHBR, to show you what was accomplished. Chris?
That's correct. So, again, this will be a brief overview of the change order for asbestos abatement. Maybe some similarities here. This same facility that Branson just touched on, so same overview, same location. And this a view from 4th Street looking back to the south of the existing facility. Now, during demolition, once the contractor started removing the ceilings from the space, we encountered a couple asbestos-containing materials. So on the 1st and 2nd floor, denoted by these red lines running east-west, on the north half of the building, we had some existing boiler piping insulation had to be removed. And then in the lower right corner, the red box, that's the indoor pool area, we had a asbestos ceiling tile above that area that had to be removed as well. We had to abate that and remediate that in order to continue with the demolition of the interior of the space. So right here is an example of one of the piping insulation covers. This on the 1st floor. We have a second one here, very common. And then this is a view of the ceiling. So what we have is the existing ceiling below and the asbestos-containing ceiling tile above that that was covered up. This is over the pool area, and this is actually a better view showing what that looked like. So today, as David mentioned, all that's been completed. We had a base bid of $164,840. The cost to remediate that came in at $16,190, which brought us to a total contract cost of $181,030. That's all I have for that piece. Are there any questions?
Questions? No, doesn't look like it. No. So we do need to approve this item. We'll take a motion in a second. Please. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 2P, recommend resolution approving amendment number 1 to the Maps for Innovation District Connectivity, excuse me, Phase 1. Let's see, extending time to award contract, awarding contract, base bid, and accepting unit prices to Rudy Construction Company for, get this right, $3,499,704.50, and approving the contract in bonds.
So this is the first street improvements that we have within the Innovation District. Bids came in very favorable. It was discussed in the subcommittee meeting. If you notice on your memo that Rudy Construction was significantly lower than the other two, but we've contacted them and they're good with their bid. They hold to it and we're ready to go.
Yeah, love that. Any questions? Okay, if not, we need to approve this item. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2Q, recommend approval of change order number 2 and amendment number 2 for the MAPS 3 Katy Trail connections in the vicinity of Northeast 10th Street between Northeast Grand and Windermere, Air Depot Trail, Air Depot Boulevard between Southeast 59th Street and I-240 for a decrease of $27,160.
So this is back to MAPS 3. Remember that we're bringing that to this board now. As it says, there is trail projects going on, and this was specifically to connect Katy Trail to 23rd Street and 10th Street, those connections. The wall that was specified, it just wasn't working out. We couldn't get the materials in a reasonable amount of time. So we have reevaluated. The contractor has worked with our engineer and come up with a different style wall that turns out to be less expensive. So we get a credit, as you said, of $27,000.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, we need to approve this item. Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2R, recommend approval of amendment number 1 to contract for engineering services with TEIM Design for the MAPS 3 Katy Trail connections, vicinity of Northeast 10th between Grand and Windermere, and vicinity of Northeast 23rd and southbound I-35. For the MAPS 3 Air Depot Trail, Air Depot Boulevard between Southeast 59th Street and I-20 for an increase of $10,000.
So same project at 23rd Street. We had designed a ramp that comes up on the north side of 23rd and connects up onto 23rd because Katy Trail is down below underneath that bridge there. The property owners in that area would not cooperate with us as far as getting land and getting access in there. So we asked TEAM to look at moving it to the south. And they did an analysis on making a somewhat lengthy connection on the south side of the street. Within that analysis, we determined that there was I believe it was a PUD, maybe it was an SPUD, but anyway, there was zoning in place for a development, and a trail that we would put through there would completely wipe out those plans, and we'd have to buy the entire piece of property because we'd make it unusable for this owner. So we looked at taking it around the side and going significantly south. We did some analysis on costs, and that's what that team has done for us. Ultimately, it wasn't cost effective, and we've pretty much just left that out right now. Public Works is going to look at possibly putting it in with their streetscape project if they can come up with
The
a
money.
way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Not? Need a motion in a second? Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 2S, recommend to receive the annual report on the Maps for Homeless project.
So as part of the operator agreement that we have with Oklahoma City Housing Authority, they have to provide an annual report. Greg Shin is here to go through that annual report with you.
Hi, Greg.
Good morning, hello again. So I'm going to cover some of the parts of our operating agreement that weren't directly related to housing development. We had some other deliverables actually this is some of these will be reoccurring through each allocation, but others are completed now. So we were required to publish a request for qualifications to establish a vendor pool. And the idea was to publish this RFQ and create a pool of vendors that were pre-approved that we could select to complete some of our projects. We did complete that first RFQ, and that resulted in the selection of one of the architects for one of our projects. We completed the annual survey that goes out to all of our resident populations, which we are required to do that annually now. We completed that. We've already completed the second one, actually. Those results are not published yet, but we do have those results. We were required to include a comment system on our website or to create one, and we do have a portal on our website. It's also published in other locations where people, residents, anybody can actually make a comment through our website, and we have a staff person that answers the phone or replies back, and so we're very current on any comments that come from the residents or the public on that system. The housing plan is in progress. In the beginning, it was kind of explained that we would create our own housing plan, but that became archaic as the continuum of care and Key to Home had the consultants from Clutch Consulting. Now what we're doing is we're having a unified plan on reducing homelessness together. MAPS 4 can't do that in isolation without the community. So we're integrating with the city office, with Jared Shaded and his team, and then with the Key to Home management. So that's an ongoing and in progress. The first supportive housing project, we're reporting that we've already acquired that facility, which I'll give you an update on. That's 76 units. So we already committed and spent MAPS money on that acquisition. And supportive housing project number 2, which was to be completed in the first allocation. We're extremely close to acquiring that site, and that will be a veterans homeless project in conjunction with the VA Medical Center. So I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. Just as a reminder, all of our benchmarks that we were trying to achieve, this is across 5 allocations now, is to have 500 units of supportive housing in place, which means the housing plus the services on site, or very accessible services. And then we were going to renovate 1,500 existing public housing units. And we also were going to create 150 new workforce housing units, which would be just a little bit higher area median income target population. So where we are now, spending the first allocation of $10.7 million is $1 million is committed to the Oak Grove project, which is a 288 current existing public housing property, which we're going to use some of the MAPS money for renovations there. Creston Park is a public housing replacement project on MLK between 26th and 29th, and we've committed $2,500,000 to phase 1 of that project. The redevelopment fund is a flexible fund that we have, and we're going to keep replenishing that as we go forward. We take money out of it, and then as we go forward and we get development fees and so forth, we keep replenishing that fund when we get grant subsidies and things that we've already applied for. Supportive housing project number 1, as I said, we expended $3 million of MAPS funding on that project, and then supportive housing project number 2, we're scheduled to commit the remaining $1.5 million out of the first allocation towards that project. So here's a little bit about the leveraging. As if you remember, we committed to leveraging at least $400 million in addition to the $10.7 million allocations over the period of time. We expect to leverage back hundreds of millions of dollars of other money using the MAPS funding sort of as the equity in our pocket to help build the capital stack. So we did commit $8 million out of the 10.7 towards development. We have the pre-development fund of 1.75, which was going to be replenished, and we have admin funds of $1,012,000. So the replacement and the renovated units, the 447 replacement units includes 159 new units on Creston Park, but we're calling those replacement units. They're going to be brand new construction, but they're replacing the 159 dilapidated units that are going to be demoed that were public housing. So the 159 is completed within the 447, and then we have 332 other brand new construction units. And the total match and leverage, the MAPS funds consist of 7% of all the projects and the funding of all the projects. So we're leveraging 93% of the funding towards all the projects, and only 7% of that funding is from MAPS. So the total that we're looking at is $163 million. I do expect that's going to go up a little bit, though, because the funding at Oak Grove, the dollar amount on that is probably going to be revised and increased. So here's our timeline. We received the first grant allocation in 2023, and then we acquired the Vita Nova facility. That's the Motel 6 project that we're doing at Reno and MLK, and we're converting that project. So with the architecture firm that was secured through the RFQ for the vendor pool, which is Script Architecture, they're a local architecture firm. We're in the pre-design phase, and we're moving to the design phase very quickly on that. And so you can see that project moving. And then the second supportive housing project, I expect to close on that very quickly. And then that has a short timeline to completion. Creston Park was already in process, and we do have a GC that we're hiring on that very quickly, and that's going to move forward and hopefully will be completed by the end of 2026. And Oak Grove is the other project, and that's a little bit further out on the schedule, but we do expect to be underway by the end of 2025 on that. And just as a refresher, this is the priority zone for the locations of the different affordable and supportive housing projects. And you can see here in the middle, this is kind of the urban core main priority center, but some of these outlying areas like over here and southwest and some locations over here, we've been seeing opportunities in these areas. And so some of the projects could be in some of these outlying areas that we're, as we go to obtain site control or we look for locations to expand affordable housing. And the big point here is that with the next map, you can see we don't want to concentrate all of the affordable or supportive housing projects in any one part of the city. The idea is to make investments in different neighborhoods across the city, which is really in line with the idea behind Housing First. If you've heard about Housing First, one of the keys to success in Housing First is that people have choice in location. And so the greater choices that people have when you're looking at affordable and supportive housing, the better the long-term outcomes are. In other words, people stay put. I mean, you can see upwards of 93% stabilization rates. People don't become homeless again when they have choice in location and have different types of housing to choose from. This is the first permanent supportive housing project that we're doing, which is the motel conversion. Just to let you know a little bit more detail, it's 76 units. We do expect more than 76 occupants, though, because some will be small families, couples, a mother and a child or something like that. But this is focusing on chronically homeless people that have disabilities, and we're focusing on people that previously may have had conviction histories, but they can't get back into the housing market. But the Housing Authority is providing vouchers for those people anyway, and we're waiving all of the restrictions on getting a subsidy other than the 2 federal exclusions, which are if you're a lifetime sex offender, you cannot qualify for a subsidy, or if you have manufactured meth on a federal property, you cannot qualify for a federal subsidy. Other than that, we will not be screening people out that are experiencing homelessness. And when we look at the cost for the investment from the MAPS money, you can see that the MAPS consists of about 20% of the budget right now. The budget is now about $15 million. We've had to comply with a lot of code enforcement. This old motel needs to be completely replumbed and rewired, and fire safety protections need to be put in. We have noise abatement due to the location along I-40. So we've got some code enforcement and some regulations that we have to comply for, which has escalated the price on this project. But we've leveraged the other monies. The MAPS funding has not increased at all. It's just we're leveraging other sources. And this is a little bit of a look on the inside. This is what the motel rooms look like in the beginning. They're in very good condition. The outside, the facade is going to need upgrades. We have to comply with some ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. All the ground level units have to be Type B accessible, and we'll have some other fully accessible units on the site. As I mentioned, we're committing vouchers to this project to guarantee affordability to the site for people that experience homelessness, and they only have to pay 30% of their income, even if their income is zero. We can't expect all chronically homeless people that are out there in these encampments to have an income immediately when they come in, but the team will be helping that, make sure that people do get an income, and then they will pay 30% of their income. I mentioned before that the estimated budget is $15 million and that we're in the pre-design phase. We did acoustic testing on the noise abatement, and the city planning office now has those results from the noise testing. And the phase 1 will include some common areas up here near the leasing office. We're creating community spaces for commitments from our partners who have agreed to come in and do tenant education classes. We'll have recovery-based meetings. We'll have open areas that are actually open to the public to come in and hold classes or meetings, and we'll have some private meeting spaces for like mental health or health providers or people that want to meet and have consultation with tenants or their clients or their patients or whatever. These services could come in from outside and be conducted on site. Now, this was phase 2, and this will be a commercial development, and this was the adjacent conference center. We will be working on converting that into commercial kitchen and operations in the second phase, but in these meeting spaces, as I said, are going to be incorporated into phase 1, while they'll be expanded into additional meeting spaces in phase 2. So the Creston Park, as I mentioned, that's at MLK and between 26th and 29th. Phase 1 is 28th and 29th Street. There's 159 units across those 4 blocks, and on 28th and 29th Street, we'll be demoing those units first. But the 3 phases overall will create 558 units of new housing. Where there was 159 units, we're going to come back with 558 units in 3 phases. The city awarded the GOLT money to us, which that was a delay on getting that, which kind of forced the timeline of the project out. We have that now. We've got the $2.5 million in MAPS funding, which is committed, and the total all phase 1 will be $54 million estimated right now. As I said, there's 3 phases, and I have a RFP for a general contractor for construction management at risk services out for bid. We have those bids in, and we're scoring the 2 finalists on that tomorrow. So within a week or 2, we'll have the GC hired for this project. Then they will come into the team, and we expect construction to begin in the second quarter of 2025. And Oak Grove Apartments, which is Southwest 15th Street in Portland, or across from the Dell plant, if you know where that is, that's where Oak Grove Apartments is. This is another public housing redevelopment project. There's 288 units there. We're working with OnQ across from the Dell plant. We will be working with them to do commercial development that will require the demolition of 18 current public housing units, which we will have to add back in the HUD plan that needs to be approved through what's called the Rental Assistance Demonstration Project. And with that money, with that money from HUD, then we convert from public housing into affordable housing. So at the end of the project, it will no longer be public housing. It'll be one that uses both public and private financing, which will be to the benefit of the project, because right now we don't get enough money from HUD as public housing to keep the property up to the standards that we want. And we have 1,000 people living at this location and lots of children. So the whole idea is to redevelop the whole place. And then to have with the commercial development with OnQ, we'll have a convenience store, and they're guaranteeing to keep fresh foods in stock. They're going to create a lighted pathway to the store for our resident community, and there'll be a lot of community enhancements. So this is a little bit of a look of the location. Here's the Dell campus here. Here's Southwest 15th Street. And here's the infrastructure with the TIF financing that we have right now, and the commercial development that we're going to open up an egress onto 15th Street, which does not exist right now. There's only one way in and one way out, so this will create two ways into the property. And then OnQ will develop the commercial pad right here, and over here is the location of the 18 units that need to be demolished. The rest of the property here is going to be redeveloped. It'll be a massive renovation project. And then adjacent down here, we have land that we have site control of with OnQ, and we'll come back with about 120 units of new construction in a later phase of the project. So that's the annual report that I have for right now, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, yes, Joy.
So I'm happy to hear that we're working on supportive housing for individuals with disabilities that are chronically homeless. It's a big need for our city. I do have some concerns, and I don't know what you all have done, your thought process on this. So when you're talking about Vida Nova,
Yes, ma'am.
you said the focus was going to be on chronically homeless individuals with disabilities, as well as individuals who have past criminal records, including sex criminal violations and charges. Not the right words, but you know what I'm saying, getting at there.
Yes, yes.
So my concern is just the safety of the vulnerable population of individuals with disabilities put in the mix with people that might not be as safe to be around, and what you're.
So
you guys are
by
putting in.
definition, everybody will have to be chronically homeless. And one of the challenges is the people on the lifetime sex offender registry will not be eligible, okay? But somebody that has a lower level sex offense, those individuals are already in the chronic homeless population out on the street in those encampments right now, and they have no pathway back into the housing market. But by definition, to be counted as chronically homeless, you must be homeless 1 year or more, or 12 months over 4 periods of homelessness, plus you must have a disability. So everybody that lives in the location will be chronically homeless, meeting the HUD definition, and they will have a disability. So among some of that population, we'll be trying to work towards a little bit of criminal justice reform with some money through the Arnall Foundation, which is helping finance this project, and helping people with lower level sex offenses could be integrated into this community, but they're also already among the chronically homeless and disabled population that is out there on the streets right now. So we are working towards community integration with this model. It's a good question. I know it's a very sensitive question, but frankly, we have to do something. In this city, we've got to do something about it. And you can't just have, you don't want us to kind of solve the homeless problem for everybody, and then what you've got left is people with sex offenses on the street. I don't think that's a good community plan, but that's my personal opinion. But we will do this with 24-hour staffing on the site. We have case managers, we have committed partners, Community Action Agency, Metro Fair Housing, Goodwill for Job Training. We've got all these partners that are going to come into those common areas and hold classrooms, and North Care will provide mental health services. So we're going to have a lot of wraparound services on site. Not just, housing first is not housing only, it's housing plus services. by definition. So we're going to put those wraparound services on site, and we'll be doing the absolute best we can to guarantee the safety of every single resident that's on the site. Okay.
Good question. Any other questions? Yes?
Yes.
Any?
So I have a big concern with Creston Park and the fact that this particular, we've been working with this housing project for some time, and the fact that it has not been demolished yet, and it is such a community eyesore. Additionally, with the fact that this project seems like it's been pushed back even more, which is difficult for people being able to stay and be on the east side of Oklahoma City as opposed to anything else. And so can you give me some more reason why that project hasn't been pushed forward more?
Yes, and number one, I couldn't agree with you more, okay? Is that we need to show investment in this part of the city and on that really important stretch of an avenue that really has been underinvested in for a long time. And our public housing that needs to be demolished is a part of that problem. There's no doubt about that. One of the main delays in this project was getting the GOLT financing approved through the city. That took many, many, many months, and that delayed the project. In the meantime, we lost the general contractor, so I had to go out to bid for a new general contractor. I still have the same architect, I still have the same civil engineer, and I have project management all in place, but because of the GOLT financing and then the loss of the GC, I had to go out for bid. While all that delay happened, we saw all the price increases in construction take place. So our budget went up by about $10 million. Again, that did not require more MAPS funding, that just required more leveraging from other sources. So that's a little bit of a complicated answer, but as I said, the new GC was being selected within the next week, and then we're scheduled to start construction in the second quarter of 2025. So you will be seeing this take place. I know it's a difficult, complicated answer, but as I also said, I totally agree with you. It's an eyesore. The very first thing we're going to do is complete demolition on 28th and 29th Streets. Now, the next phase is 26th and 27th Street. There are still 7 homes there that are occupied. We're going to work on relocating those families to other locations, and then they will have a choice to come back on the project and move back into the new housing that's built. But that's in the second phase. So the demo for 26th and 27th Streets will be a little bit further out than the 28th and 29th Street demo.
Okay, it's not possible to do all the demo at the same time, or?
Well, with HUD, demo it's a process called demolition and disposition, and you have to apply through HUD with a strict process to get the approved for the demolition. We've got that on 28th and 29th Street. We still have to get that on 26th and 27th Street. In addition, we don't have, for the 170 units on 28th and 29th Street, that's $54 million, and I have 11 subsidies to do that project. It'll take similar financing to do phase 2 on 26th and 27th Street, and I do not have the financing for that yet. And I actually do not have any MAPS money committed to that phase 2 either. So I'm going to have to build that capital stack and get approval from HUD to do the demo and then move forward with new bids. I'm hoping that the GC that what I'm hoping is we're looking at consecutive development. So if I can have phase 1 underway and I'm applying for the financing plan for phase 2, the GC that's on phase 1 will be on site with all the equipment. We can go right into phase 2. That's the plan, and we have 3 phases here. So it would be much more cost efficient to the Housing Authority and the Community Enhancement Corporation, which is our nonprofit development arm, to work with our partners to have that continuous development plan. I think it will save a lot of money. We're looking towards the long view to do that, but it's going to be complicated to make that a seamless, continuous project.
Okay, and I have another question, because when we first started on this deal, reason why we're having the annual report. We were having issues with with you all passing housing inspections for the housing authority. That wasn't mentioned in this report, but how are you all doing now on housing inspection moving forward so people can move a little quicker?
I'm going to defer that answer to our Executive Director, Mark Gillett. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon now. My name is Mark Gillett. I'm the Executive Director with the Housing Authority. Question is on inspections. So the Public Housing Authority properties are inspected now under a program called INSPIRE, National Center for Inspection of Projects. It's a new process. We started that process 2 or 3 years ago. It used to be the physical inspection process. HUD wanted to reevaluate how those inspections were conducted, really moving more from the exterior of a property to the interior of the property where the residents actually live. I'll tell you that we have had the majority of our properties inspected in 2024. They are not finished yet. One of the properties they have not inspected yet is Creston Park, what we now today call the Northeast duplexes. Why have they not inspected it? Because HUD has to inspect at least 20% of an occupied property. If there are 7 units left, it really just doesn't do a lot of good to come in and only look at one. So HUD is a little confused on how to make that inspection viable and reasonable, because you can only do occupied units. So that's why Northeast duplexes has not been inspected in 2024. The other properties that we have publicly, we talk a lot about the towers at 9th and Broadway. We talk about Jeltza McGuire at 10th and Lottie. And I'll tell you that we're really excited about those scores. Those scores were 93 for the towers and out of 100. And we were also very excited about the Jeltz score, which was an 81. And those are superb scores. And so those lie on one side of the outlier that we're talking about with our inspections and the media recently. The other outlier is that unfortunate, disappointing, accurate score of a 7 for our scattered site properties. 448-ish scattered site properties around Oklahoma City. That does not include the duplexes. So HUD comes in, does an inspection, and evaluates that score on this overly complicated analysis of what the property is. Some of the 7, in our opinion, is that HUD brought staff from Washington, D.C., the experts in INSPIRE. They brought their regional inspection staff, the mid-level boss, and then they brought all of their contractors from this region to look at our scattered site properties. They were looking for stuff. They were teaching their inspectors how to find every last little thing to evaluate a housing authority on. The 7's a valid number. I'm not saying it's a valid number. The 7's a valid number. Did they work harder to find the 7? Maybe so. We've also had discussions with City Council and our board about what they call the disposition of scattered site property. That's the sale, basically. Ultimately, you're a long ways from sale. Disposition of scattered site property. Why? Because a housing authority cannot, in any community really, manage and well maintain 448 scattered properties across the city. Some of those properties are 100 years old. Some of those properties are 80 years old. Very, very, very few of them were built after 1970. The score is accurate, all the scores. The 93 at the towers is an accurate score. The 7 at the scattered site properties is an accurate score. What we're talking about today with maps is the fact that the northeast duplexes, what will become Creston Park in our ultimate plan, that property has not been inspected. The vacant stuff does need to be demolished. We sat here for months and months and months and months trying to get GOLT passed. We couldn't get GOLT passed. Finally, when we get GOLT passed, we go back to our funding sources, and we have lost what they call the Qualified Census Tract, QCT. That's how low-income housing tax credits are awarded. You get bonus points. What does that mean? That meant that we lost $5 million automatically. 10% of our proposed estimated budget. So, and then we also have the issue of increasing costs. We all talk about how much more construction costs. And so we've had a domino effect over the last several years that has affected Creston Park. We're telling you today that we are hiring a general contractor. We have hired outside consultants to be our development team, and we're ready to go forward. I know that we've been saying that for a while, but we have a new staff, we have new consultants, we have new partners, and we're ready to go forward.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I'm on the record by saying that I still have a lack of confidence in the housing authority. Because when I look at Ward 7, we seem to have and continue to get further developments for low-income housing than I feel any other ward. And that, I think, is difficult for one section of the city to have as opposed to other areas. So I am disappointed. I have little faith in the development and the execution of the MAPS 4 monies for this project.
Yes, Chelsea.
So can you give us an updated timeline on when Creston Park current existing properties that are dilapidated will be demolished?
Greg?
I think it was in that timeline.
It is in the slide deck. I'll go back and find it. Wait, got me go back. Oh, I'm having trouble going back here. There we go. There we go. So right now, we're here, and we're hiring the new GC, which will join the team. We have pre-existing architectural plans for the site. They will come on right now. We will go through value engineering to try to lower the cost of construction. And then we expect that here, by the end of the second quarter, that will be under construction. We already have 99% of the financing is in place. And we're hiring the new GC. We're finalizing the hard construction costs. And then the first thing that we will do is set about getting all the permitting in place and begin the demolition of the houses that are vacant on 28th and 29th Street. So that is what's going to take place. On those 2 blocks, that will be replaced with 170 units of brand-new construction, mixed-income affordable housing that will include housing that will replace the first wave of demolished units, which were all low-income public housing. Those will be replaced in Phase 1. In the 170 units, there will be set-asides for below 30% of AMI households, below 50% of AMI households, below 60% of AMI households, and below 80% of AMI households. And then the below 50, below 30 will have vouchers committed to them. 81 out of the 170 units will have access to a voucher, and so you'll guarantee affordability for 81 out of those 170, or those 170 units. So that's the plan right now, and I hope that the specificity on the detail, and as you've seen with some of these previous slideshows, we'll be able to come in with the architects and show you the detail of the housing that we're building as we go forward. Because we don't have the GC on board right now, I'm not ready to give you all the design elements. I have them in place, I have all the drawings, but they're subject to a little bit of change with the new GC coming onto the team, but you'll see all the detail of exactly what it's going to look like. So I'm very confident. I hear your objections. I understand I wasn't on the team then. There's been turnover, like Mark said. I'm the new Assistant Executive Director over Development here for revitalization in the community. I've got all these contracts in place, and I'm 100% confident that it's going to take place. I wouldn't be standing up here making this presentation to you as a part of our annual report if I didn't believe that. So what I hope is that we prove you wrong, and that when we get this product on the ground, you will believe us. I believe that the first supportive housing project that we're going to complete will actually be the second supportive housing project, and you'll see that take place, and then you'll see Vita Nova take place. They'll all be under construction at the same time, and we're going to prove to you that we actually are going to make these affordable housing investments across the city. So I understand the hesitation. It's taken a long time. I understand why somebody may not have faith, but we're going to execute, and you'll see the product on the ground.
I'm sorry, so my direct question was, when do you think the construction or the demolition will happen? So I'm estimating.
At the very beginning of the very beginning, right here. That's the first part of Phase 1, will be the demo on 28th and 29th.
Got it. So it's looking like Q3 of 2025 is when we might begin starting the demolition process for Crescent Park.
No, I believe it'll be the end of the second quarter in 2025 is when we'll begin demo.
Okay, so from now until then, those will sit.
Yes, and the site plan from the contractors that bid, what we're seeing is they'll begin on 29th Street, and they'll start demo consecutively going down the hill. If you're familiar with the neighborhood, it kind of goes downhill, and then they'll do demo. They'll do phases of demo, and as we get past a block, then we'll start the new construction while the demo continues further on. So we'll be building new while we're still completing the demo.
Sure, awesome. I understand there's been a lot of consideration. It sounds like there's been a lot of application for the GALT funds, a lot of annoyances that those didn't appear as you wanted them to, but until the end of Q2 2025, Crescent Park as it sits will sit like it is. Is that what we understand?
Mm-hmm. The demo will begin, and then we'll start the new buildings as soon as demo is started on 29th Street. So you should see new development there by the end of 2025. New construction will be taking place.
In the meantime, it is still an issue for the community that it's sitting as it is.
Yes, and so what we're doing right now is we have staff in our construction services department who goes out there and secures those buildings every single week. We go through those vacant buildings and we secure them, we board them back up, we lock them back up.
That's a lot of work.
We clean up debris. And so if you drive through that neighborhood right now, you won't see any open buildings, you won't see any trash or debris right now. I've traveled up and down them many, many times so that we don't have any code enforcement issues.
Sure, I fully hear this, and I appreciate your work and your efforts towards these things. It sounds like you're working really hard to secure property that needs to be demolished. So I do wonder if there's any way we could is there a way to move the demolition to a different project or something so that we can make the properties safer and not cause so much effort to keep it secure for the community outside of MAPS?
We don't dictate that. That's their purview.
And part of that is under the HUD regulations for the disposition and the demolition of the properties. So we really can't begin, like for instance, can I begin the demo next month?
Yes, can you?
The answer is no, I can't do that. It's going to have to go with the start of construction, and we're going to have to get the permitting in place and begin all at once.
I'm sure that is a disappointment for the community as they exist with the units as they are. So I would just like to reiterate that
I
in my
understand
public
that.
comments.
I do, and as I said, I agree with you. It is an eyesore for the neighborhood, and I don't like that. It's not acceptable to us either, but we do have the plans to do brand-new construction on the whole site, and we're replacing all of it. So it will take some time, but you will see the investment. As I said, it's my opinion that that part of the city has been underinvested in for quite some time. With that and the Clara Looper Center, which will be across the street, we're going to see a lot of new investment in that part of the city.
Anything further? Okay,
Thank you for your questions, even the hard ones. I appreciate it.
thank you for being here. Okay, moving on to item 2T, recommend approval of resolution allocating, what? I'm sorry. Oh, I am so sorry. We do. We need to vote to receive the annual report. Thank you, Mark. Make a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2T, recommend approval of resolution allocating $10,762,400 to the MAPS for homeless to the Oklahoma City Housing Authority.
So that number that you see, the $10,762,400, is out of the implementation plan. It's not some new number.
Right.
It's just the next allocation.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, we can take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. The motion passes. Moving on to item 2U, recommend approval of real estate donation agreement with Echo Soccer for the MAPS 4 multipurpose stadium, vicinity of South Shields Boulevard and Southeast 3rd Street.
So as it says, this is the agreement for that property for the multipurpose stadium that the operator had to provide. If you look in the agreement, you can see the location of the property. It's roughly 9 acres in the Producers Co-op area that we've talked about in previous meetings. So this is just to formalize that agreement.
Any questions? Okay, take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Do you have it on presentation, Joy? No, it's on computer? Okay. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. I guess your computer's tired too. Okay. And our last individual item is 2V, presentation on construction manager at-risk delivery method for the MAPS 4 multipurpose stadium.
We're looking at some different construction delivery methods. It's certainly the trend. We're coming into some difficulty sometimes with these larger projects, getting people to what we call hard bid. Jason Cotton here is here to explain all this with ADG. I've asked him to go through this so we can help you understand some of this change that we're going to go through.
Thank you, David. Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. I think I'm more fully appreciating I'm now the least favorite person in the room keeping everybody from lunch. So we did this in about 45 minutes yesterday at subcommittee. We are not going to do that this morning. So if you can give me 10 minutes, I will go through this as quickly as I can. It's a lot of information, but I do feel like it's really important, and so we'll hit the high points. So as David shared, the presentation we have for you this morning is regarding construction management at risk. And so this is a delivery method that is available to the city of Oklahoma City as a political subdivision inside the state of Oklahoma. We work with a lot of different agencies across Oklahoma that utilize this delivery method, and it's becoming increasingly popular. And so when I say delivery method, really what I'm talking about is the way the project is designed, bid, and constructed. And so this is just something, this has really been going on over the past 18 months. There's actually a couple of trusts at the city of Oklahoma City that are executing a couple of projects using construction management at risk. The Airport Authority is doing a CM at risk job right now. They're constructing a new hangar. Also, the Zoo Trust has a construction manager that's under contract right now, and they've been bidding work. And so this presentation is really more specifically related to the multi-purpose stadium that's a part of the MAPS 4 program. And so there's been a conversation to this point of utilizing this delivery method on that project. And so that's really what we're here about, is to explain the delivery method. It's going to feel a little bit different, I think, from the board's perspective. Construction contracts and things will be coming to you in a little bit different order and at different times in the project than maybe what you've otherwise been accustomed to. And so we thought it made sense to just bring something forward and explain this at a high level. So really, the city of Oklahoma City has 3 delivery methods that are available to them. The 3 that I've explained all of those here. The first one is hard bid. That is really the way that the city has executed projects by and large for several years now. They've had a lot of success with it. A lot of the major projects that were done in MAPS 3, almost all of them, actually all of them in MAPS 3, were done through hard bid. Really, the thing that you need to realize about hard bid, and it's maybe a little self-evident, but the owner holds a single contract with the general contractor. Really, what happens is we hire an architecture and engineering team. They complete the design documents. When they're done with the design documents, the city then publicly advertises the project, and they award the project to the lowest responsible bidder. And so that's really the sequence of events. That's how almost all of the MAPS projects have been done to this point. Construction management is a little bit different. The owner actually holds the same agreement with the architecture and engineering team, but it gives the opportunity for the owner to essentially start bidding the work prior to the completion of design. And so what happens is the owner selects a construction management firm early on based on qualifications, and then that construction management firm helps the city bid the work publicly. And so it looks a little bit differently. The last one is, the last delivery method is design build. This one is a little bit different in that in a design build delivery method, the city actually holds, or the owner holds, one contract with a design build team. They basically give the design build team a set of performance requirements, and then that team provides a proposal back to the owner to execute that work, to design and build that work. So these are the options that are available to the city. All of this is governed by state statute. The last one on the list, design build, that I just spoke about, is actually, the state statute actually only allows political subdivisions to use that delivery method when they're executing water or wastewater projects. And so I have grayed that out here on this slide, basically because we are not doing water and wastewater projects as a part of MAPS 4, and so it's not particularly pertinent to the conversation today. So this is really what the hard bid delivery method that we have all been really accustomed to through the MAPS program. This is what it looks like. The owner holds a single contract with the architect and engineer, or with the architect. They have subconsultants that work under that agreement. Like I said, they finish the design process, they bid the work publicly. The lowest responsible bidder, general contractor, is awarded that contract. They have subcontractors that are under their contract. And so these are the contracts that the owner holds. There's frequently direct consultants that work for the owner. So that would be people like construction and materials testing, might be asbestos abatement, could be firms like ADG Blatt that helps the owner execute work. And so this is really what I guess this delivery method looks like graphically. So one thing to make sure everyone is aware of, the delivery, any of these delivery methods, no matter which one we use, are really, they're administered and managed by the Oklahoma City Department of Public Works. And so the Public Works Director, her staff, they're responsible for really organizing and making sure that everything is done per city ordinance. And so they're a part of this process. A lot of the conversation that's been going on over the last several months is coordinating with their office and making sure that this is being executed in a way that works for all the departments that will leverage this delivery method in the future. This is the delivery method which the city has historically used. We've talked about that already. As I mentioned, the general contractor is selected after the owner accepts the bids. Any general contractor at the City of Oklahoma, in order to bid work at the City of Oklahoma City, there's a pre-qualification process that they have to go through. They have to pre-qualify in order to be able to bid. And typically, we use the phrase lowest responsible bidder. So they submit a qualified bid, which means it has all of the required bonds and insurance and all those sorts of things provided with the bid. And generally, that lowest responsible bid is what's selected. Typically, on a hard bid delivery method, there's one bid event at the end of design. The design effort, in some cases, the city might hold multiple contracts, but for the most part, we have a single general contractor that's responsible for executing all the work. So for construction management, I think it's probably easiest for most people, if you're not familiar with it, to think of this as the owner or the City of Oklahoma City engaging or hiring a construction consultant. And so they're really brought on very early in the process. They're brought on board to help the owner and the design team finish the design work, deliver the project on budget. They help with completion of the design, help the owner bid the work, and then obviously construction of the project. These are some of the activities that a construction manager will provide to the city, and so you can see some of the things I've already mentioned here. Cost estimating, they'll do constructability reviews, they'll help the owner develop procurement strategies, they'll help identify long lead items if there are things like that. You know, David mentioned earlier this morning the Coliseum schedule, and because of supply chain issues, you know, generators and electrical switchgear became a real challenge for the team to get, and so a construction manager will identify those challenges for you early. It is very similar to a hard bid delivery method in that the construction manager holds all of the subcontracts. They're fully responsible for execution of the work. And so in reality, even under CM at risk, like the structure looks very similar. And so it is one thing that I've already mentioned, but I wanted to clarify. For CM at risk, the owner will actually go through a qualifications-based selection process. So it will be very similar to how the City of Oklahoma City selects an architect or an engineer to execute design. And that will be done very early in the project. Usually we will negotiate the early parts of the contract, which will include negotiating things like the construction manager's fee, the fee for pre-construction services, which includes some of the things I've already described, and the general conditions for the project. Once the construction manager is under contract and they have worked with the city and the design team to decide how to bid the work, the construction manager will essentially bid the work through packages. The trade contractors will be selected through one or more public bid events. And then as those bid events are executed, really the construction management, amendments to the original construction management contract will come back to this body and city council for review and approval, and that's really how the work is executed or the contract executed. Most construction management projects that we've worked on usually have somewhere between 2 to, I'm going to say about 7 different GMP amendments that are done, and so you guys will see those as a part of the process, assuming we use this on the multipurpose stadium. So just a couple of things in comparing these two delivery methods. As I said, these are really the two that we have available to us. Really, no single delivery method is the best for every project, and so really it needs to be done, you know, selection of a delivery method needs to be done on a project-by-project basis. I think our assumption at this point is that will largely be done by staff, and so that will be made clear to the board, I think, as we bring projects forward, which delivery method we're going to be using. Really, the selection of a delivery method is really related to a bunch of things, a lot of the different project characteristics that I've listed here, the scale of the project, complexity, technical complexity, schedule. I'll show you in just a minute a timeline of a hard bid project versus a construction management at risk project, and you'll see that we have the ability to speed up the design and construction process, and so some projects will require that and others won't. The other thing that I want to make sure that I drive home is not all project delivery methods really represent the same cost to the owner. There are things that construction management at risk does for the owner in terms of diverting risk from the owner, and so frequently those take the form of additional fees for the owner, and so there are some things that need to be thought of from that perspective as well. So just a little bit of a side-by-side comparison. I'm going to go through these really quick. These are really kind of rules of thumb that we have internally. Hard bid projects really lend themselves towards smaller projects. That's not to say that you cannot execute large-scale hard bid projects. The city of Oklahoma City has used a lot of hard bid over the years. The Oklahoma City Convention Center, all the projects in MAPS 3 were done as hard bid. But certainly, as you get into larger budgets, it starts to beg this question of, is construction management at risk the right delivery method? We, I think as a firm, would typically recommend once you get below $5 million, construction management at risk may not make sense. And so that's something that we need to keep in mind. As I mentioned, if you have a project that has a really aggressive design and construction schedule, construction management at risk makes a lot of sense, provided that you have sufficient time for design and construction. It gives you a little bit more of an opportunity as an owner to complete that work before you engage a contractor. And so you can see how we kind of think about these side by side from that perspective. Greenfield projects that are new construction, I think are more appropriate for hard bid. A lot of the renovation work, any projects that involve renovation work or projects that have a high likelihood of unforeseen conditions, we believe really lend themselves to CM at risk. I know one of the projects that the MAPS office is working on right now that ADG Blatt's not directly involved in anymore is Union Station. And so we tried to hard bid that project. We really got surprised on bid day. And the city right now is going through a process to select a construction manager to do that project and move it forward. So hard bid, low technical complexity, conventional construction is really, I think, where its sweet spot is. So, think of projects like sidewalk construction, things the city or the owner does day after day and really doesn't need a whole lot of input from the contractor in order to deliver the project, really belong more in a hard bid scenario. On the other hand, projects that are really technically complex or potentially technically complex, we've talked about the multipurpose stadium here a little bit this morning. Certainly that type of construction lends itself, I think, to construction management at risk. One of the big things on CM at risk and the big benefit to the owner is that you have less of a chance of surprises on bid day. And so, certainly COVID changed the world in a lot of different ways. Being here and working with the city through the MAPS program, during that time, it really turned a lot of things upside down in terms of markets. And so we got a lot of projects that, it's like every day was a new day. We never knew how bids were going to come in. And so hiring a construction manager early on doesn't necessarily enable you to deliver a project less expensively. But what it does enable you to do is to get a better understanding of what your costs are prior to the day that you open bids. And so frequently a construction manager, they're providing pre-construction services. You may have an interim design package that gets submitted by your design team. You find out, in the office that you're, 20% over budget, and you can figure out a solution then rather than after the fact, after you've opened bids. And that's, I think those last bullet points are just driving that point home a little bit. So this is really just a couple of quick timelines. So this is just a slide that really shows the standard City of Oklahoma City process under hard bid. And so we go through a selection process, we select a design team, we negotiate a contract. This orange bar is just really representing their services. They bring a preliminary report forward, usually when they're at about the end of design development for the board's review and approval. Once that's approved, they move into final plans, and then that is done. Those final plans come forward for review and approval. Once those final plans are approved, it really authorizes staff to go ahead and start bidding the project. And so that's when we start the bidding process. After we finish that bidding process, it comes back to this board for award of the construction contract. And so that finishes bidding, and then after bidding is done, we start construction. Obviously, when we finish construction, the final acceptance of the project comes back for consideration. So construction management at risk, as I said, in a lot of cases can be used to really speed up the process. And so you can see here how we've kind of condensed this timeline. There are some things that are happening in parallel. It's essentially the same 4 phases of work. You'll notice the green bar at the front. Not only does it include the A&E selection and contract, but it also includes engaging a construction manager and negotiating their contract. And so, in theory, once you've done that, you can go ahead. Your design team can start finishing or preparing their design documents. They may be 50% done with the design. We go ahead and bid the first package of work and start construction. And so, in theory, both design, bidding, and construction, they're all happening side by side. And so that's one of the big benefits for this delivery method. And so here's just an example of what this might look like for another project. You can see here I've shown really 3 essential bid events, GMP amendments to the construction management agreement, We have the same final acceptance of the project once we're done. Last slide, and then everybody gets to go get a sandwich. These are just some of the public-facing activities for CM at Risk. Like I said, we'll have city public advertisements for construction management at risk services. So that's very similar to how we've done design team, advertised for design team services in the past. The CMAR contract, the construction management at risk contract, once the city negotiates that contract, it will come back to this board for review and approval. It will likely include pre-construction services only and a few other things. But, one of the things I think as a board that you need to understand is this will happen much earlier in the design process. And so you will probably feel like, well, we just hired an architect for that project not that long ago. But that's really the way this process is intended to work. And so it will feel a little bit different, I think, from the board's perspective. We'll still have the same approval of preliminary reports. Before we go to bid, there will be final plans that come forward for review and approval by the board. And so those will feel very similar. And then once those are done, once we bid, there will be amendments to this construction management agreement that come back to add those contracts into the construction manager's agreement. So with that, the only other thing I'd say is, frequently for design and construction projects here for this board, I think you're really accustomed to hearing construction updates and design updates and other administrative items. My guess is that will all look very similar as it has in the past, and so I don't think there'll be much change from that perspective. So with that, I don't know if I got it done in 10 minutes, but I did my best, David. And I'm welcome to answer any questions if you have any.
Jason, thank you for condensing 45 minutes into whatever it was, 10 plus. So any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay, moving on to item 3, discussion items. Do we have anything for discussion?
We don't have anything further.
Okay. 4, any reports from the subcommittees? Nope. 5, updates and status on MAPS 4 program.
We talked about a lot today. One other thing I want to add is that the diversion hub is under construction. Drive by there and see them working.
Yes, it is. Yay. Item 6, comments by board, staff, or citizens. No citizens. Any staff? Any board members' comments? Okay, if not, we're to item 7. Thank you for your patience, and we are adjourned. Thank you. Good to see you.